So today we'll be doing a slightly different video than usual reviews. This will be my first top 10 video that I'm doing. And today we'll be doing the top 10, my personal top 10 favorite action figures in the vintage collection. So it's a very hard list to make. There's so many action figures in the vintage collection I really like. And sometimes it's kind of painful to not include them in the list. But these are 10, basically I narrowed it down to 10 action figures that I always want as a part of my collection. Some of them hold sentimental value to me in some way. Some of them I just think are really cool and help define what makes the vintage collection so great. And some of them it's just based on uniqueness, and we'll get into that here in a bit. And keep in mind as well, this doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best. Some of the characters that I'll show, I know some people in the comments might be like, oh, that's not the best version of that character, or no, this one's so much better. But the particular ones I'll show are my personal favorite, and I'll explain why that is. So first off, we'll start with number 10 here, and it's Bom Vimdin. I haven't done a review of him up until now. I will eventually. But Bom Vimdin, it's a character that reminds me of what makes Star Wars action figure collecting in general so great. Is that a character that has like 2 seconds of screen time gets an action figure made of him, and let alone actually gets one in the vintage collection. Up until now, we really don't have a whole lot of blink and you miss type characters like this in the vintage collection. He's one of the very few. And I don't know what Hasbro's thought process was when they decided to make him, but I'm glad they did. And I'm glad to own it. I believe, if I recall correctly, he was in the Cantina in New Hope. Again, it's a character that probably has 1 second of screen time. But, and in general, it's just a great action figure to own. He has a lot of great detailing on him. I really like how he's got this studded jacket on him. Of course, he has his cup from the Cantina. And he's just a great background character to have. He can fit with various displays. And of course, the new Navarro Cantina set that came out recently, he'd be a great fit for that. He'd be a great fit for a Mos Eisley Cantina display, or maybe the Streets of Coruscant, you name it. He's a very unique action figure. Great background character to own. And as far as I know, he's still fairly affordable if it's one that you'd be interested in having for your collection. I actually didn't get this back at the time. I think he came out around 2011, 2012 or so. And I recall he was one that would sit on the pegs for a long period of time. And I actually got this maybe about 5 years ago or so now. And I think I only paid maybe like $10 for him, brand new. So it's definitely one I would recommend having for your collection. And it's one of my favorites from the vintage collection. It's very unique. And he can fit with lots of displays and add variety to your collection. Number 9 here is Barriss Offee. In particular, this is the original release. The new one based on the 2003 Clone Wars series. It is a great action figure as well, but I wanted to represent a more movie accurate Barriss Offee. I really think it's unfortunate how the Clone Wars portrayed her. I don't like how they basically branded her a traitor. And her character is totally different, I think, based upon what we see in the Clone Wars versus what we saw pre-2008. I like how they handled her in the original Clone Wars series much better. But as far as the action figure is concerned, I think she has a very powerful presence. I like how they did her skirt. Very wavy. Like I said, it gives her a very powerful presence in the collection. And she's very well made. She's not a fragile action figure where you feel like you're gonna break her just by moving one of her limbs. And you can get her in a lot of great poses. And she is built a little bit different compared to most action figures. I believe her head is actually not attached to her body at all. Her head's just inserted in her hood. I'm not going to take it apart. It can get kind of messy doing that. But from my understanding, that's how they made her head. And of course, the fabric on her skirt here is very nice. Lots of good detailing. Great articulation. She's built very well. And yeah, what can I say? Just a great action figure to own. I always like to try and collect as many of the Jedi as possible, and this is one of my favorite ones that I have. Again, I haven't done a review of her as of yet. I hope to in the future. I think if I recall correctly, she does come with a unignited lightsaber hilt. I probably have her hilt somewhere among my accessories. And I like this combination too of how they did a molded hood and cape with the soft goods skirt. I think it turned out very well. So yeah, that's number 9. Number 8 is another personal favorite and typically a fan favorite in the vintage collection as well. It's Darth Malgus. Very nice action figure to own. Very unique Sith Lord to have. I do hope he gets a re-release at some point. Just not that he can really use an update, but more so just so he's more available for collectors that really want him. And surprisingly, I don't know about the last couple years, but up until maybe 2019 or so, he was actually very affordable to get on eBay. I recall checking on him every now and then, and I would see prices even go for $25, $30 brand new in the packaging, and this is like 7-8 years after he was released, which I'm kind of surprised. Sith Lords usually go, especially unique Sith Lords like this, usually go for outrageous amounts on eBay, so this has been a fairly accessible one to get. I'm sure the Black Series one helped keep that value down, but there is I think there is a significant enough difference between the TVC and the Black Series version, re-release version, to not they shouldn't have influence over one another. I mean to say, the paint on the TVC version is definitely much better. The limbs are much easier to articulate. Like, I know I do have the Black Series one as well, and for whatever reason, I think it's his left leg. I just cannot get that articulation motion in it at all. It's almost like it's a board in a way, and I'm afraid to break it. And I did own a Black Series one before that one, and I did accidentally break it. So I think if you're going to pick between the Malguses, definitely go for the TBC one. The articulation's a lot more fluid, a lot smoother, better made. But yeah, he's a very nice action figure to own. A lot of good detailing on him. I really like how his cape is here. I know the hood is kind of large for his head, but I personally don't mind it. I think it looks all right for him. Very bulky action figure as well. And just a great display piece to have in your collection. Very comparable to a Darth Vader. And I like how his lightsaber hilt is very unique. Of course, you can take this off, and he has his regular cape as well. Personally, I have played the Jedi Consular walkthrough in the Old Republic game. I only played it once and never again. I'm not the biggest fan of the Old Republic game. Knights of the Old Republic is far better in my opinion. I do recall in the Jedi Consular playthrough, one of the side quests I did, seeing a hologram transmission of Malgus. Again, I have not done a review of Malgus yet. Hope to in the future. But yeah, that's number 8. Number 7 is the character that the sagas revolved around, and it's Darth Vader. Now, I know we've gotten lots of great Vaders in the vintage collection, and the recent one from the Obi-Wan series is probably going to be the far superior Darth Vader, and probably the best Darth Vader that will ever be released for the near future. But this particular one is it's a re-release of the first Darth Vader in the vintage collection. I believe it was VC number 6, I think it was. And this is the one with the removable helmet. And of course mine has the photoreal tech, being the re-release, but I really like this Vader. This is one of my favorites. I always like it when Vader has a removable helmet, and this is one of the best looking, or Anakin's I should say at this point. This is basically an Anakin Skywalker portrait, but this is one of the best ones that's been made. I really like how it turned out, and it greatly benefited from the photoreal. But I just like how this Vader turned out. I'm not too particular about Vader being a super articulated action figure. I think he's more of a stiff character anyway. So I don't think he needs to be in these huge dynamic poses so much. So I'm okay with like having swivel hips and a swivel neck and things like that. But it's just a very nice Vader to own. If you can only have one, this is definitely a good contender to have, and a lot of it is because of the removable helmet. And I can get them in the poses that I want them in, so I personally think this is one of the best Vaders you can own, and it's generally very affordable. It's seen so many re-releases over the last 12 years or so at this point. Maybe even like 4 or 5 releases in various cards. We'll probably never see it again now that we've gotten the re-release with the photoreal tech, but it's still easily accessible, and I think it's a very nice Darth Vader to own. Is it the best Darth Vader? Probably not, but again, it's a good Darth Vader for what it is. The helmet looks good. The build of it is very good, very fluid articulation. If it's a very solid plastic, you cannot go wrong owning this Vader. If this is the one and only one that you own, I think that it's a good candidate. So now we're moving on to figure number 6, and it is Commander Gree. So this particular Commander Gree is actually the 30th anniversary one that came out in 2008, but it's the same exact action figure that is in the vintage collection. The only difference maybe the paint is slightly different. But it's one of my favorite action figures I own in general, and it's definitely one of my favorite clones. This is a very unique sculpt. I don't think any other clone up until this point has this particular tooling or this mold at all, and it's very unique for Commander Gree. And to me, this is the definitive clone trooper. It has seen 2 or 3 releases up until now, so it fortunately is a fairly affordable clone trooper to have. And I believe this is the first clone, one of the first clones that actually had hinged wrist. And up until 2009, 2010 or so, it was one of the few clones that actually had hinged tips. And very good paint detailing he has. Really like that camo, somewhat camo theme he has going on. And Commander Gree is one of my favorite clone commanders as well. But it's just a very good sculpt. It is one of the best looking clone troopers we've gotten today, even with a lot of the other TVC releases we've gotten. I prefer this sculpt compared to most others, and it's a very nice one to have in your collection. If you can only narrow it down to maybe 5 clones to own in your collection, this is definitely one I would recommend having. And of course, this is before Commander Gree had the double mohawk from the Clone Wars series, so we just got a regular clone head. And also, I don't think this is a character that needs a retooling or needs to be redone or anything. This is the perfect Commander Gree, and it's one of the very few Star Wars action figures I think can claim is the perfect action figure. There is no need to revisit it unless it's a re-release of the exact same thing. So yeah, great one to own for your collection. The next one here is figure number 5, and it is the number 13 Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. They change the name pill every now and then, and there's 2 variants of that card that exist. One of my favorite action figures. I really like this sculpt that they did for Anakin or Vader. It was originally released in the 30th anniversary line in 2008, and they reused this for the vintage collection. The only difference is now he has the hinged elbows instead of the swivel ones. I didn't mind the swivel elbows so much. I know a lot of people don't like it. I think it was just fine for this action figure. And of course it has a new head sculpt as well, and I really like how they did this head sculpt. Even without photoreal tech, it looks very nice. And to me, this is it's just a fun action figure to own. There's lots of poses you can do with it. It's great for dioramas. They even went to all the trouble to sculpt his right hand in like a choking pose where you can recreate that scene in Revenge of the Sith. I really like how they did the hair. Up until this time, we hadn't have too many action figures where they actually sculpted the hair different from the head itself, and they did a very nice job with it. Personally, I hope we are missing a Revenge of the Sith Anakin Skywalker before he turns to the dark side in the vintage collection. And I would be perfectly okay if they reuse this sculpt. The only thing they would really need to redo is just an entirely new head, and that's about it. And maybe resculpt his right hand a little bit so it's not in a choking pose. But I think it's a great Anakin. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me and say we need a brand new one from the ground up, but I really don't think it's necessary. It's a perfect action figure almost. So number 4 is another fan favorite, and it's the ARC Trooper Commander Captain Fordo, and this is the original release. We just got the re-release in the Clone Wars line, or from the Clone Wars series in the vintage collection, just like Barriss Offee back there. But personally, I actually prefer the original release of it for 2 reasons. One, because of the extra accessories it comes with to recreate Captain Fordo from Season 2, from that really cool scene that we saw on Coruscant. And also, I believe the paint is actually far better on the original release compared to the re-release. I think they got very cheap on the paint, and there's a lot blotched paint I've seen samples of, and mine is a little blotched as well. Technically, the other one's more accurate than this one. There's a lot more red that should be on his helmet, but I actually think this looks far better compared to the re-release. And oddly enough, Captain Fordo was one of those vintage collection action figures where you can find them at just about any price. I actually did not get this one until like 2017 or so, and I only paid about $25 for it brand new. And I've seen some even at that time go for hundreds even, so it's one of those ones you can keep an eye out for. It doesn't consistently go for outrageous prices. If you're able to find one, definitely I would recommend it. It's again, what can I say? It's Captain Fordo. It's a fan favorite. Definitely a lot of people's favorite clone trooper. And again, if you could only pick a couple clone troopers to own, this one and Commander Gree would definitely be two that I would keep. And just, it's a fun one to pose. It's one of those few action figures where I think that the newer TVC sculpt for the clones actually works. And it just looks very nice. Of course, you can't take his helmet off. And again, unfortunately, with a lot of re-released action figures with the photoreal, it just doesn't look right. It's better if they do entirely new head sculpt from the ground up and then do the photoreal tech than if they just simply try to do the photoreal on top of an old head sculpt. For whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to turn out very well most of the time. So if you are able to get a hold of the original for a decent price, I would definitely recommend that one over the newer one. However, if you do have the newer one, I do as well. It is a very nice one to own as well. But between the two, I would say if you were only going to pick one of the two and price was no factor, I would say this is probably the better one to get. For the additional accessories, which unfortunately I don't have right here right now, those are all in storage with the rest of my extra accessories, but this is definitely the preferable ARC Trooper Commander or Captain Fordo to own. We're down to three more. Another fan favorite is Darth Maul for number 3. I really like this action figure. It holds sentimental value to me somewhat. I got this at the time. And oddly enough, it was the only Phantom Menace wave action figure on the shelf at Toys R Us. And of course, Toys R Us doesn't exist in the States anymore, so it's nice to think back in something I got from Toys R Us at the time, back in 2012. And I really like this Maul. I know we definitely could use a brand new Phantom Menace Darth Maul from the ground up. Enough time has passed, and based upon the technology we have now, he could definitely use an update, but I like this one as is. I like how he has the sculpted hood and with the soft goods combination. Some people don't like it, but I think it worked out very well for this. It's a very articulated action figure. Up until this release, we really didn't have a very good Phantom Menace Darth Maul. We had the shirtless one from the Sith Legacy pack, but for this one, basically the Saga Legends one that had been released multiple times was about the best one, and compared to this one and the technology we have now, definitely doesn't hold up as well. And there's just so many accessories that go with this. They came with the binoculars that he uses outside the Sith Infiltrator. Of course, a removable lightsaber hilt. You can take his lightsaber apart there. Of course, you can take the hood off and his cape off, or his cloak off. And it's just a very nice action figure to own. And I really like how they did the horns too. I know they're probably a little bit, they made his horns a little bit bigger than what they should be, but I think it turned out very nice for this release. And of course, this is an action figure that was re-released as well. I do prefer the original over the re-release. Again, because of the photoreal tech, I just don't think it turned out very well on a head sculpt that already existed. I've seen some samples, and even one of the samples I have, for whatever reason, the pupils didn't turn out, or they didn't turn out very well. So personally, I would rather own the original release, which is this one. And I think the head sculpt turned out very nice on it. Down to our final two. Another personal favorite, Bastila Shan. When I heard that this figure was going to be released in the vintage collection, I was very shocked. Characters from Knights of the Old Republic are highly neglected, other than Revan, obviously. So it was very nice that we got Bastila Shan, and no better place than in the vintage collection. Again, it's another great Jedi to own. I try to collect as many of the Jedi as possible, and this is one that I would highly recommend. Very unique, yellow, with a yellow lightsaber and a yellow outfit, just adds variety to your collection. And of course, if you played the game, you know all about Bastila Shan. So, and of course for me, I've been playing the game since the release, the original release, and it's just nice to have some representation from that game. And it's a fun action figure to pose. I know some people say it's not the best head sculpt. I think it looks just fine. It doesn't look 100% like Bastila, but I think it's very close. And since we don't technically have a realistic interpretation of what she looked like, this is nice for what it is. I know on the Black Series re-release, I believe they moved the eyes a little closer together. I think it turned out alright for my sample. I don't mind it as much. Unfortunately, she has turned out to be another very expensive action figure, so if you do get hold of one, I think probably the Black Series one would be the more affordable one to get. Again, the head sculpt is slightly different, and the paint is a little bit lighter on the Black Series release compared to the TVC version. I really hope we get a re-release of her at some point. I think with, who knows how that will turn out, but with the alleged Knights of the Old Republic remake in the works at some point, whenever, if it ever gets re-released, I think she definitely deserves that. Will she benefit from photoreal tech? Who knows? We'll see. But nonetheless, I do think she should get a re-release. And now we're down to number one. Probably be a somewhat surprise to some of you. It's probably not most people's number one favorite action figure in the vintage collection, but I'll explain why it is mine here in a second. And it is the Sandtrooper. The more dirty Sandtrooper from the Lost line. This particular one I got is from the Lost line. It also got a release in the standard vintage collection packaging, a little bit harder to get a hold of. Personally, for me, this is my favorite Stormtrooper mold. Of course, we got the Rogue One Stormtrooper mold, and now we got the A New Hope one with the rocker ankles. There's definitely a lot more better looking Stormtrooper tooling out there now. But personally, to me, I think this is good for what it is. I think the helmet is spot on perfect almost. I really like how they painted this, how they made it dirty. For a number of years, it was hard to get a Sandtrooper that Hasbro would actually put dirt on. So this is the best example of that to date. I like how they did the sensor droid, and they gave the actual piece to make it look like he's floating beside him. It's nice that they gave 2 rifles, lots of good accessories. He fits great in any display, I think. And again, it's just a very nice Sandtrooper. To me, it doesn't necessarily have to be the best sculpt or have the most articulation. It just has to look good enough, in my opinion. And this is definitely a great candidate for that. It's very, very nicely made, very solid plastic. It doesn't feel like it's going to break on you just for moving its articulated limbs. And what else is there to say about it? Of course, at the time, it was a very nice treat to have the hinge tips, which this one has. And I think it turned out very nice for this. Try to get him to hold that there. Yeah. We'll just do that for now. But would I recommend that particular Sandtrooper for your collection? I definitely would. Again, to me, it's my personal favorite Sandtrooper, Stormtrooper that's been released up until now. And it holds a little bit of sentimental value for me as well. I got it for Christmas 2013, I think, from my parents. It was one that I was having a hard time tracking down, and I wasn't wanting to pull the plug on paying for it, so they were nice enough to do that for me that year, and they said they found it for a great price. So it will always have a special place in my collection because it came from my parents. I didn't buy it personally. And I would definitely recommend it for your collection. Again, if you can only pick a few Stormtroopers, Sandtroopers, whatever, any Imperial Troopers to have for your collection, if you can only pick a few, this is definitely one of the ones I would recommend that you own, even narrowing down to like a top 3. But anyways, that's my top 10 list. Again, I know some people say, oh, that's not the best Vader, or oh, there's better versions of Maul or whatever and whatnot, but these are the ones that hold sentimental value to me. I think they're some of the best made action figures in the vintage collection. Again, unfortunately, in a lot of the newer releases, we see it where sometimes it feels like the limbs are going to snap off just by articulating them. None of these have that problem. The paint is very crisp on each and every single one of them, in my opinion, and they all look very nice to have. And all 10 I would recommend to have for your collection. And again, if you had to narrow it down to like one clone trooper or one Vader or one Maul, these are some of the ones I would recommend that you have. So anyways, that concludes this video. I would recommend all 10 of these to you. I will do a review on the ones that haven't gotten a review yet, which I think is just about every single one of these. I will do a review at some point. Keep an eye out. I will do a lot more top 10s in the future. Hope to branch out and do a lot more unique videos as well. And again, thanks for watching. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do. And for those of you that have subscribed, at the time of this video, all 34 of you, I thank each and every single one of you. And stay tuned for more videos, and thanks for watching.